Hello, everybody. Hello, how is it going? Everything fine? We are here, like every Thursday, to read 3 more chapters of About Harry, a fanfiction I wrote on Harry Potter's adulthood. Probably by now you know it already. And yeah, we have got my cat here as well. He's making us company. You can see. Wait. Here he is. So probably if you will hear some purring, it's gonna be him. And yeah, so we are here to read 3 more chapters. And tonight is gonna be the last night before summer holidays. So we will see each other again. Ricky, be quiet. We will see each other again on September. To be exact, I think the 8th. Let me check. Yeah, the 8th of September. So yeah, a summer break. And as I should probably mention, those 3 chapters will be uploaded on my website, which is www.atscribblingaloud.wordpress.com. You will find it in the description anyway. And you can download them anytime for free, because I will do my usual disclaimer here. Those characters of this work are not mine. I didn't invent them. There is a copyright on them. And I just use them to entertain myself and others without making any money whatsoever. That's why you can download them for free. Still, this work is registered as mine. I mean, the idea and everything. I guess that after this brief introduction, we can start. And tonight we will read chapter 22, 23, and 24. So, yeah, let's start if my cat will allow it. Sorry for this noise you're about to hear. Okay. Chapter 22. It is my fault if she died. The following morning, they woke up early. The street was completely empty, and the usual desolate air of post-New Year celebration was all around. Probably Harry and Ginny were the only people awake in the whole borough, if not in the whole city. This gave Harry a sense of peace. They were having breakfast in silence, looking outside the window. Traces of the previous night's parties were everywhere. Empty bottles and rubbish of every kind lay abandoned on the street. For a moment, he tried to imagine how it could have been if nothing had happened in respect of Lily. Probably they would have gone all together to see the Muggle fireworks at the House of Parliament. Probably Lily would have fallen asleep in his arms, tired, getting back home. And he could picture it so well that he could almost feel the weight of her in his arms. He could almost hear her breathing. And the pain started to grow so intense. I've got to stop torturing myself. He halted immediately this train of thought. He was taking me straight to that pit of grief he wanted to avoid. He didn't help him. He was past. It could never happen again. It was unwise, the what if. He had to concentrate on the present. The next day, James and Albus had to get the train to Hogwarts, and it was the last chance to speak to them before they left for many months. He was concerned on how he would find them towards him, but he couldn't leave this gap that was dividing them open. He had to try to seal it before them departing, otherwise, he knew he was doomed to become bigger and more difficult to mend. I'm going to the Barrow, he announced to Ginny when breakfast was over. Shall I come? She asked while clearing the table. He shook his head. No, I'm going by myself. I'll bring them here. It'll be easier tomorrow to take them to St. Pancras. She nodded, and as she approached the sink, she added in a subdued tone, I'm putting back all these pictures. I want you to be prepared. I don't want them to think we are trying to cancel her from our life. We can take them off again if you want after they are gone. He realized just then that all Lily's pictures had disappeared from the house. Ginny had taken them away not to trigger him while he was grieving so violently. She had been wise in doing it, and he didn't want them back. It was easier this way. It is not that I'm trying. He paused to swallow the knot in his throat that was impeding him to speak. I don't want to cancel, he stammered, uncertain on how to continue. It just. He tried again, without success, to complete the sentence. He had difficulty in speaking what was on his mind, difficulty to explain he didn't want to forget her. But it was so hard trying to keep a balance, trying to keep on living, when he had her smiling and moving in picture as if she was there in front of him, and she was not. All the time, something that would remind him of Lily happened to cross his path. He felt a wave of devastation that threatened him with insanity. He still didn't manage to get inside a room for fear to be overwhelmed. The only way to get away with it was not to be reminded of her. Ginny left everything in the sink and went to embrace him. I know, she said. You don't need to explain. We will keep them off until we both feel a bit better. When is that supposed to be? He asked, wary. I don't know, but it will happen eventually. One day, we will wake up and we will feel good again. I promise. They sent words to Molly and Arthur of his intention, and by the early afternoon, he was ready to go. When he got there, they were waiting for him in the kitchen. Molly hugged him, smiling. He could see her eyes wet, but she didn't make any mention of Lily or Ron. Arthur patted him on the shoulder. James and Albus are in the garden. They are waiting for you, he said in an outside smile. He went to look for them. The snow there was still covering everything. He could see from far away the little town with the cemetery where Lily was buried. He had no wish to go there. That place didn't mean anything to him. It wasn't difficult to find the boys. Clear footprints in the snow showed him the way. They were sitting on a bench in silence. When they perceived him, they didn't speak. They just looked at him with their round eyes wide open. Can I sit? He asked. They lowered their eyes to the ground, their expression unreadable, and parted, leaving him space in the middle. He sighed, witnessing that hollow expression, knowing that a hard task was waiting for him. He had time to think about what to tell them, but nothing seemed right, so he wasn't prepared. I'm sorry, boys, he started saying. I'm sorry you had to witness what you did. Those words didn't raise any reaction. They kept looking away from him, but their attention was clearly caught. Emboldened, he continued. There are no excuses for my behavior. I know you have been very much frightened by it, and rightly so. I was very much in pain, and it wasn't the first time for me. It happened many times in my life to grieve for people dying, and I guess this was a time too many. Albus, at those words, lifted his eyes to him. Like Cedric, he said. Harry, thankful for that exchange, nodded. Exactly. Unfortunately, there have been others, like the wizard you got the name from. Albus shrugged his shoulders slightly. We know about Dumbledore. he replied. And about your godfather, and Ted's dead. Harry looked at him inquiringly. Certainly, they couldn't have apprehended that from him. Albus, noticing, explained. Grandma and Grandpa told us about it. They explained to us why you were so upset. Harry stroked his hair. I'm sorry, I've never told you any of these. You are so young. It didn't seem right to me that you had to know all these sad things about me. I was wrong. It doesn't matter that. It is not as we didn't know. We have always known it. We asked Mom and Uncle, and everybody in school knows about you. That sentence made him suddenly realize how foolish he had been. How could he even think that they wouldn't know just because he decided not to tell? I should have done it, he continued. What happened to your sister brought everything back, I guess. I had a lot of anger inside I couldn't keep in. He felt sick again, thinking to what his family had to bear in this occasion, and that helped in giving his apology a tone of sheer sincerity. I'm sorry, boys, you had to witness it, he repeated somber. It's all right, Dad, Albus said, concentrating his attention on a pebble he picked from the ground. We felt pretty bad too. James, that until that moment hadn't spoken, murmured darkly, I'm sorry, Dad. We know she was your favorite. Harry felt a pang. Why do you say that? It isn't true. Yes, it is. It was plain to see how you played with her, talked to her. He wasn't speaking with resentment, only with much sadness in his voice. No, James, listen to me, he said, taking him by the shoulders. She was indeed my favorite girl, but I've got two favorite boys as well, I love very much. You are absolutely not any lower in my affection than Lily was, and still is. James was still avoiding his gaze, though, and he shrugged his hands from him. His eyes were filling fast with tears, but his expression was hard now. It is my fault if she died, he whispered, passing an arm quickly on his eyes to dry up the tears he was ashamed to let Harry see. Harry was very much surprised by this affirmation. That could hardly be considered true. Why? How could it be your fault? I told him it's not. He won't listen to me. Albus' voice came from Harry's right. Shut up, you! James snapped. It is my fault. And turning to Harry, you didn't want to go, and I argued. I made a fuss, and someone came and said we could go. If I hadn't, we wouldn't have gone, and she would still be here. His expression mutated in a pained grimace while he was speaking, his face congested in the effort of not allowing those tears that were clouding his eyes to fall. Harry heaved a big sigh. James, this was not your fault, no anybody's. Me and Mom were already undecided on what to do, and it wasn't because you argued that we decided to go, but because we wanted you to enjoy yourselves. We knew how much you all wanted to go. It didn't have anything to do with you arguing. You can believe me. He put an arm around his shoulders that was now accepted, and one around Aldous. James nodded, shaking with repressed sobs. Harry kept his voice close to him until James' sobs quietened and relaxed close to him. Are you going to take us to the cemetery? Grandma is taking us every day, but today we didn't go yet. Albus asked, his gaze not leaving the pebble in his hand, rolling on his palm. If you want, we can go, but you don't have to feel forced to. It doesn't change anything. He hadn't any desire to visit the grave. He wanted to avoid the place. But if Albus and James wished to go, he would have accompanied them despite his reluctance. Albus hesitated, raising his green eyes to the burrow for a moment, leaving the pebble fall in the snow under him. So then, no, I prefer not to go, he whispered, and then, after a few seconds, spoke again. What about Uncle Ron? He asked in a clear uneasiness. What about him? He faltered. You know, you beat him. And I heard from Grandma while she was speaking to Grandpa that he is in Azkaban. His eyes growing bigger with fear. The mentors might perform the kiss on him. Harry didn't want to antagonize his children against Ron despite what happened. He realized that his problems with him didn't have to influence them, especially since Albus was so close to Rose. He is okay, he then said. And I explained to you already that the Mentos haven't been there anymore for a very long time. He will get out tomorrow because it wasn't his fault. It was an accident. But we didn't really make up, so I don't think we'll see each other for a while. You can go anytime you want to his place, though, if you want to. They didn't answer, lost in their reflections. Harry didn't know how much they guessed about his resentment toward Ron, but he didn't ask questions. We should probably go now. Your mom would like to spend some time with you before you leave. And that was the end of chapter 22. Hello, Marco. Hi. I'm glad to see you. I'm sorry if at the beginning I read very, very badly. I stumbled on many words. I stammered a lot, but I don't know if you noticed, but I had the cat on my legs that was actually struggling so much, and you probably didn't see it, but it was just moving a lot and trying with his paw to get my papers, to get my pen, to get my legs. So yeah, it was a kind of struggle to read properly. So I apologize if the beginning was a bit like shaky and all wearing. Okay, so I guess we can carry on with chapter 23, which is called He Will Be Marked by It Forever. And here we find out something very important. Platform 9 3/4. Marco. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. Web can forgive the cat. Yeah. We can forgive the cat, I guess. Okay. Platform 9 3/4 was full of families saying goodbyes. As usual, and more than usual, people were staring in their direction. Lily's absence was blatantly visible by everybody and felt very much by them. She was so lively in taking goodbyes at the platform that she could hardly not be missed. Already, the trip going there had been subdued. Harry was so used to taking her by the hand to go anywhere that when distracted by some thinking or talking with Ginny and he would realize she was not there, he looked for her, forgetting for an instant that there was a reason for her absence. Every time it happened, it was as if somebody punched him hard in the stomach, leaving him breathless, rising in him the awareness of how empty his hand felt. He would clench it so tightly then, in a vain attempt to fill it, that his knuckles whitened. Once at the platform, he tried to impress on his face by his expression the words, "If anybody dares to come close, I'm going to dismember him." It seemed to work. People were keeping at the distance, for now. He spotted Ted taking a passionate goodbye from Victoire and could almost see the bad vibes coming from the 7th-year boys around them. They didn't seem to notice anyhow, too busy with their non-verbal salutation. For the occasion, Ted's hair were very short and flaming red. Harry smiled, happy for them and amused by the jealousy of Victoire's fellow students. Harry turned to James and Albus for their goodbyes. He wanted to part with them in a light, cheerful way. Okay, boys, it might be difficult, but try not to brood over what happened and enjoy yourself. Write anytime you feel the need, and if somebody tries to pester you with questions, you are allowed to punch them straight. Harry! Ginny bellowed. You are absolutely not allowed to do such a thing, she said, scandalized. Harry and the boys sniggered. Okay, use the wand then, but check teachers are not around first. Harry, for heaven's sake! Jean interjected again, scolding. She kissed the boys and hugged them very tightly. When she let them go, Harry noticed she had tears in her eyes. But it was the work of a moment. The next, they were cheerful and smiling again. Hermione, with Rose and Hugo, appeared from the wall at the moment. It was plain Harry's family wasn't the only one having problems. Hermione's expression was troubled, and Rose and Hugo were at both sides of her with blank faces. As soon as Rose saw Albus, she ran toward him and took his hand. She looked at Harry, but averted her eyes quickly, and she greeted them without looking at them again. Harry was aware it might happen. He was expecting it. Yet, he felt sorry for it, especially because Hugo was clearly very much afraid of him. He kept Hermione's hand, and he didn't answer when Harry and Ginny greeted him. Harry tried to behave normally, however, hoping that, with time, they would feel at ease with him once more. Hermione bade goodbye to Rose, promising her a letter as soon as Ron would come home. She nodded, and giving another fearful glance at Harry, she ran on the train, followed by Albus. James, having seen his friends, was also gone in a minute. They waited together for the train to leave, waving their hands when they appeared on the compartment window. As soon as the train was out of sight, Hermione turned to them. When are you planning to go? She asked Harry, much agitated. I'll be going as soon as we get home, he replied, understanding straight away her meaning. She nodded somber, and with Hugo, she disappeared behind the barrier without adding another word. He wasn't looking forward to that moment, but it had to be done. He wished it could have been different. He wished he could have forgiven him, but he knew he could not. Their friendship was broken without remedy. He tried to shake off the feeling and said, Okay, time to go. Where is Lily? And stopped. Okay, breathe now, he commanded himself while clenching his fists. He took a big breath. Ginny was looking at him with concern. It's all right, he said, noticing, trying to smile. Shall we go? While they were about it, Ted caught up with them, light-headed, most probably by the remaining villa effect. Hi, Harry. Hi, Ginny, he said dreamingly. Harry smiled and said mockingly, Hi, Ted. Not to worry. It's only 5 months and you will see her again. Hearing this, he woke up from his dreaming instantly. 5? No way! I'm meeting her at the fourth Hogsmeade trip. I believe she may have one in February. He sighed. It'll be a very long month. Harry and Ginny chuckled. He will pass. And it's her last year, you know, Ginny said comfortingly, patting his arm. I'll leave you two to catch up. I need to do some stuff at home. But you don't need to hurry, she added, pecking Buff on the cheek. She made quickly for the barrier, and, in a moment, she was out of sight. They started to walk back in silence. I'm glad to see you so sedate. I was expecting you in a destroying things mood. I'm glad to see it's not the case, Ted said while passing swiftly at the platform's barrier. The station was full of people catching and leaving trains. Nobody paid any attention to them. I have done my bit of destroying things, he admitted, walking toward the exit. I have an exceptional wife, however, so I got over it. I guess, he started in saying hesitantly. You did something not nice to her. Did you? He tailed off, looking in front of him. Harry was speechless. This kid had the gift of making him awkward with uncomfortable truth, and not nice was an understatement, as they both very well knew. He answered cautious. As a matter of fact, I did. Yes. I wouldn't wish to go into details, though. Can I ask you how you possibly know? Were you hiding in the wardrobe by any chance? Ted chuckled sadly. No, Harry, I wasn't hiding anywhere. I just knew it was going to happen. I told Jeannie to leave you alone, to keep away from you. I advised her to stay at the Burrow with the children. But I know her too. I knew she was incapable of leaving you in that state of mind alone. Harry was all amazement. Have you got some magical powers I don't know of? Ted laughed again. No, I don't think so. I just pick up things. I study people. I've always done it since I can remember, and I enjoy trying to slip in their shoes and guessing what they would do in different situations. I studied you for all my life, I know you, and the day of the funeral was the confirmation of my supposition. Harry felt again exposed and uneasy. He didn't like to be reminded about that day and the followings. Ted continued. Knowing you, I tried to imagine what was going to happen. And I knew it. I've almost seen it. It has been very painful, I must tell you. That's why I've got a rough idea of what you felt and what you are feeling. He was serious now, and his hair turned back white while he was speaking. It was usual with him. His hair or eyes would change color following the mood of the moment. Once he had pointed it out to him, and he admitted that he was aware of it, but he wasn't doing it on purpose. It was something out of his control. What about Ron? He then asked. Why does everybody care so much about bloody Ron? He burst out before being aware of having done so. He hadn't lost a daughter. I did. Everybody fretted about Ron. Everybody expecting him to help him, to be a friend to him, while he just wanted to erase his existence. Why must you worry about Ron after all that had passed? Ron could forget what he had done eventually and go on with his life. He could be free. Harry would have never been free, imprisoned forever by Lily's memory. Ted paused thoughtfully. I guess it's because he's the weak one. You have a strong mind, you fight against what troubles you. Ron, on the other side, is more of a brooding kind of person. If he stays in Azkaban too long, he might go mad, and most probably he will try to do himself in sooner or later. Harry was amazed by this kid and his comprehension of the people surrounding him. He didn't want to dwell too much on Ron, however. He didn't want to feel sorry for him. He wanted to hold on his resentment. It was easier to manage than other emotions. Well, I'm taking it out, but I don't want to see his face again after that. Ted sighed. I thought that much, and I'm sorry for it. I care about Ron as much as I care about you, and the worst is about to come for him. I'm sure Hermione can see it too. Why? He asked, puzzled by his affirmation. Ted couldn't know about his suicide attempt. Only him, Ginny, and Hermione were aware of it. He's getting out. He will be free in a couple of hours. Harry, I listen to people around me in San Mangos. Everybody is talking about it. Sorry for the brutality of the expression I'm about to use, but he's the one that killed Harry Potter's daughter. Nobody cares if it was an accident or not. He will be marked forever by it. He was astounded by this piece of news. He was obvious, yet it was also a revelation. And despite what he had thought just a few seconds before, he felt suddenly sorry for Ron. Life was playing a cynic game on him, always wanted to be popular and recognized. Now, he turned out to be so for having killed a 6-year-old girl. What do you think is going to happen? Harry asked. Ted shook his head grim. I don't know, Harry. I'm just empathetic. I'm not a seer. I only know that a hell of troubles is waiting for Ron out of Azkaban. And that was the end of chapter 23. If you were watching me while I was reading, you probably noticed my cat going up and down, about and around, and everywhere. I'm sorry for it. And it's actually kind of difficult reading while he's doing all this stuff. But tonight, strangely enough, is cooler than the past days. So he's feeling much more active than usual. Okay, so hopefully now it's gonna be quiet and we can keep going without any intermission. With chapter 24, which is called It's Over. And this chapter I really, really like because we go in Azkaban. And yeah, despite I don't think I'm very good with description and I don't like them much. I don't enjoy writing description of places. I tried my best in here, and I hope you will like it. And I don't know if you hear that, but outside is thundering, which is the perfect weather for this chapter, actually. Okay, so chapter 24. It's over. He had been to Azkaban before. His job took him there sometimes. He didn't like the place. He was a desolate and ugly building. A tall and square double wall with 4 tall turrets were surrounding the main building, a rectangular edifice made of big grey stones. The windows were small, spare, and barred. The island on which it was built was bare in winter, as in summer. It was a cliff on the water. Nothing grew on it. It was dusty, and the sea around didn't improve the scene. After the Voldemort bringing down, the Mentors were driven out the place, so Harry had never seen it with them floating around. But it seemed like the feeling of those creatures was still there. He couldn't picture how this place could have been even more desolate and forlorn than it appeared to his eyes. All the happiness left people when getting to it, prisoners or not. He always felt very much for the witches and wizards that had to work there. He would never hear a laugh or joke, not even among them. Their uniform was grey. Everything seemed to be grey. Harry couldn't remember ever being sunny there. It was always either foggy or raining or cloudy, like that day, and it looked even more forbidding than usual. The entrance door was in iron and small. He had to lean to pass through it. He was greeted by the guards. They knew him well, and they knew why he was there. Hello, Harry, said the one to which Harry was on first name basis coming forward. His name was Ernest. They had chance to chat time to time when he was there for business. Harry liked him. There was an air of honesty and simplicity about him that she valued. I just wanted to tell you, on behalf of everybody here, that we regret very much what happened. We were very sorry to hear it. He wavered for a moment, and then he added somber, looking away. I've got a daughter of the same age. He seemed sincere, and Harry knew it was felt, unlike many other words of condolences he had to submit to. He nodded, acknowledging it, and him, after Harry had left his wand to the guard standing beside the door, without further words, conducted him across the second wall. They crossed the empty and miserable courtyard. A few benches and a frail looking tree was everything they could be seen in it. After being searched, more guards let them pass through the door for the main building. Inside was chilly and slightly damp. A few torches were lit, emitting a feeble glow that seemed swallowed by the grim atmosphere. It was bright outside, despite no sunny. Yet, inside, scarcely ever one could see some light. The windows were too small, and the inside too vast. Torches were always lit, night and day. He was escorted through a vast room, and then forced to a corridor, and then to another. Every few steps they stopped, and Ernest pronounced incantation under his breath to allow them to pass through the security spells casted in the building. Many doors, all alike, opened on it. Harry reflected how many wizards were behind those doors because of him. The hunt of Death Eaters had lasted for years. It wasn't over yet. Some managed to flee abroad, and they were still actively looking for them. But most of them were in those cells waiting for their life to end. Harry thought that, in a way, it would have been better for them to still have the mentors. At least, they would have the certainty of a speedy madness and consequently death. Being as it was, they just had countless joyless and green days in front of them. Nothing to look forward to, if not the end. Some committed suicide after a few years with the same method Ron had tried. It was a bleak prospect. But they brought it on themselves. They were paying for the atrocity they did in the past. Ernest halted in front of of one door, looking exactly like all the others. Here, he said. He drew on the sturdy wood a symbol with his wand that glowed feebly in the dark, vanishing quickly. And the door opened on a small, dismal room made of big blocks of stones. The walls, bare and shiny with moist, the ceiling high, and the lonesome tiny window projecting a square patch of light in the middle of the room. A wooden bench was attached to the wall, and Ron was sitting on it, emaciated and wild looking, his hair uncombed, the beard grown, big shadows under his eyes. His garments were wrinkled, dirty, and ripped in places. He detected Harry behind the guard, and his eyes widened in stupor. Apparently, he hadn't been informed of the visit. The sight of him reawoke in Harry the anger felt before. Seeing Ron so despondent only irritated him more. He had no business in being dejected. He would have preferred to see him defiant. At least he would have had a reason to physically vent out his frustration. None of them spoke. Harry had the confirmation of what Ted said just a few hours before in Ernest's eyes. Usually, guards kept their faces expressionless in front of inmates, but on this occasion, he could clearly see contempt depicted on it. Time to go, Ernest said flatly. They got back through the corridors and the bathroom, Ron marching in front of them. Harry's glance was fixed by the rhythmical movement of his wrecked looking man in front of him. Ron had been his best mate for more than half of his life. He had found in him a complicity he never had with anybody else until going to Hogwarts, being the source of his first laugh and happy moments after 11 years of total loneliness and bullying. Ron had shared his own family with him, who had none. He owed him so much, so many cheerful memories in between the dark times. And yet, everything was gone, like if it never happened, neutralized by one single act. But such an act that rendered impossible for Harry to rekindle what she knew it was still there. Somewhere, hate was raging in him like a thunderstorm. If it wasn't for Ron, he could still have his precious little girl to brighten his days. This was not something that could be either forgiven or forgotten. They crossed the courtyard in silence. The sudden light blinded Harry's eyes for a moment, and from a flinching in Ron's demeanor, he knew that the same had happened to him. It was the first time for Harry to take somebody out of Azkaban, and the first time that he was leaving the place with this fierce mood. It usually took people in, and no matter how difficult or dangerous the capture had been, he always felt good in leaving, knowing that he had done his duty, and thanks to him, there was one less evil wizard at large to worry about. But now, Harry was letting Ron out from that gloomy prison, and he, with what had done, had locked him in a far worse place than Azkaban. They reached the double walls, and the aversion from the guards toward Ron was palpable. They let them pass through the small iron door, and one of them shoved roughly in Ron's hand without a word a small bag containing his wand and personal effects, while Ernest gave Harry a friendly pat on the shoulder and a parting good wish together with his wand. The door closed behind them with a clank. They were alone, walking side by side in that god-forsaken place, and Harry could barely contain the frustration. Then Ron halted. Harry, I don't know how to say this. I'm sorry, he said contrite. Harry halted too, few steps in front of him. He turned slowly, putting all his effort in mastering his rising temper. Spare me, he answered with a scornful laugh. If you are hoping for an absolution from me, you will find it in vain. Ron lowered his eyes, defeated. I'm not looking for anything of the kind. I know I cannot offer it. I feel awful. Lily, don't you even dare to pronounce her name. He tailed him off sharply, angrily. Ron nodded. The wind was blowing, rising the yellowish dust around them. I see how you feel. I can't blame you. Thank you for letting me out and everything. Harry looked at the miserable and battered looking man in front of him, his shoulder hunched, his eyes incapable to meet his own. And for a split second, he saw the frecklish, thin, and gangling boy that was staring gaping at his car the first day they met. It was time to put an end to it. I didn't do it for you, he spat in defiance. I've done it for your sister, for Hermione, and your kids. But not for you. Perhaps for what has been, but definitely not for what is it now. He stopped speaking for a moment. Baron didn't reply, taking in every word limply. Harry was irritated by this listlessness. He wanted to hit him to provoke him in a fight, but he constrained himself. What he had to say was more important. It's my turn to say this. I want you out of my life. This is the last time I lay my eyes on you. You are free to go wherever and see whoever you wish. I'm not as unreasonable as you have been. You are free to see my family if they want to see you, but not when I'm around. If you decide to be somewhere, I won't be there. Ron was motionless in front of him, still avoiding his gaze. It's over, he concluded. He turned his back on him, spite scorching him like fire, and marched away, leaving him there, alone, standing in the middle of the nothingness of the place, with windswept hair and torn clothes. Harry didn't look behind. He didn't hesitate. He took Just one step more, the last one, and disapparated away. And that was the end of chapter 24. Marco Victor Kram, I mean. What do you mean with Victor Kram? So, yeah, that was the end of the 3 chapters of tonight. As I said, I will upload them if I can tonight, otherwise, it will be tomorrow morning. And yeah, I guess that's all for tonight. And we will see each other in September the 8th. And I wish you a happy and fresh summer and a good night too. See you the next time. Bye bye.